Let's talk about tariffs. Are tariffs a good idea? Do tariffs help us, or are they counterproductive? Do they just add friction to the interaction? Well, I want to keep this very, very intuitive and straightforward and just common sense, right? We don't need to get all economically nerdy. I think that's totally unnecessary. And this is a really, really, really important topic. So first of all, we need to get comfortable with the fact, not the opinion, the fact that tariffs are a form of taxation. If you don't believe me, look it up. A tariff is a tax, okay? So the main, biggest, most important thing we need to understand here, to understand tariffs, is to think about voluntary trade for a minute, okay? And I know this is going to sound like kindergarten level stuff, but you can't possibly think about tariffs or any kind of taxation clearly if you don't understand the nature of voluntary trade and supply and demand. Okay, so let's cut the BS and do a quick thought experiment. I love thought experiments. So let's say that you want to buy lunch, right? So you go to Bob's restaurant, you're hungry, they have good food, and you've been going there forever. You give them $10, they give you your lunch, and you're both happy. You shake hands. Hey, thanks for the lunch. No, thank you for the money. Right? This is the nature of voluntary trade, is that both parties are made better off. They both walk away happier than when they both first started. So if you were to ban that transaction, say, nope, you can't go to Bob's restaurant, you've both made Bob's restaurant worse off, and you've also made, well, in this case, you, the person who's eating there, worse off, right? So trade, generally speaking, is a good thing as long as it's voluntary, and both parties are happy and they're both being made better off, right? Now, let's introduce a third party into this interaction. Let's say it's the mafia, right? Some gangster. And he says, okay, you guys can, do your little trade here, but you're going to pay me 10%. And you see, I'm going to give you guys protection services. I'm going to protect Bob's restaurant, from gangsters. And I'm also going to make sure the food is safe, right? But the thing is, like, you already trust Bob's restaurant. Bob's restaurant doesn't want or need these protection services. He already hired someone else. But, the mafia says, no, either you're going to pay me my cut or this transaction isn't happening, right? Okay, so let's say you do the trade and you have to pay the 10% sales tax to the mafia, the 10% extortion fee, right? Naturally, we understand in this simplified situation that you're being made worse off, right? Because you're having to pay the 10% tax. And like, you could have spent that money on food instead. That would have made you happy. And Bob's restaurant certainly doesn't like it because, again, he wish you would be able to spend the money on more food or just anything else for that matter. You could save the money and go buy a video game, whatever, you name it. So this is not, specific to tariffs. This is about taxation in general. Anytime you introduce coercion, right, the threat of force into a situation, you are imposing an economic friction, a dead weight, because you have taken somebody's money by force, right? So you can't possibly make somebody better off by taking what they have by force. It literally cannot happen. It would be like standing in a bucket and trying to pull on the handle of the bucket and make yourself levitate. Like, that's how pants on head crazy it is to think that taxation is somehow going to help anybody, right? Now, let's rope this back to tariffs specifically, because statists, people who support tariffs, they will twist their heads into an absolute pretzel trying to justify tariffs in the same exact way that people who support income tax and sales tax and property tax and any number of taxes will try to argue that they are actually doing a good thing. They're actually helping people out. And once again, it's like trying to violate the laws of physics. Like, I've dealt with this so many times as an engineer. People will say, like, oh no, if we mount a fan on top of the car, a turbine, or we put a little generator on the wheels of the car, we can extract energy from the situation, and boom, like, we have free energy. And I always tell them, it doesn't work. That energy has to come from somewhere, right? You are bleeding out the system. You are literally adding friction to the system if you place a turbine on top of the car. In the same sense, tariffs are extracting money that could have been used elsewhere on something else that somebody actually wanted, that it was actually voluntary. Because again, You don't need other people to take your money and spend it by force to make you happy, to make you better off. You literally can't do it. There is no way you can take a gun and point it at somebody and say, look, I'm going to make you better off today. Just give me your money and I'm going to go make something that you love. It literally can't happen, in the same way that like you could never rape somebody into loving you. It is an actual impossibility, right? So the case against tariffs is literally no different whatsoever than the case against any other kind of taxation, simply because it violates people's consent, right? It is a form of aggression. You are imposing coercion into a situation where it would not otherwise exist, where it was otherwise voluntary, right? So let's get into like the specific arguments where people say, no, you don't understand. See, this is why tariffs are good and useful. And, again, people twisting their brain into a pretzel. So one example would be, we need to protect local industries, because if people, in the case of like the US and China, if people only go and buy stuff from the cheaper supplier, well, we're not going to have any industry here. So here's my response to that. First of all, China is not a thing any more than the United States is a thing. They're literally just people who live in various places who are being ruled by governments. But other than that, they're just voluntary people who want to get along and who want to trade, right? So with that being said, if you are trying to prop up a local industry who otherwise could not compete, what you're doing is basically coddling them. You are allowing them to exist where they otherwise would not be able to, or face at least the harsh realities of competition. And what is that doing? Is that making them strong? Like, for example, if you are raising a child and you keep them in a little perfect protected bubble their entire lives, and they never have to compete, and anytime there's a game of sports or chess or you name it, and you don't allow your son or daughter to fail and to try hard and to literally stand on their own 2 feet and compete, what do you think is going to happen to them? Are they going to grow up big and strong and capable and competent? Or are they going to be weak and they're going to fail at the first sight of real competition? So all you're doing when you engage in protectionism, because that's what this is, when you try to protect a local industry, all you're doing is making it weak. You're giving it a crutch, and then one day that crutch is going to get kicked out from underneath it, because guess what? The competitors in China or elsewhere, they're not relenting. They're going to continue to get strong, right? So if you want to win a bodybuilding competition, the answer is not to never look at your competitors and just, always be told that you're amazing and you're strong and you're awesome. It's like that whole body positivity movement. Like, I'm not going to acknowledge that I'm fat and out of shape and a total slob. Like, that's not helping anybody. That's literally just keeping somebody in a vacuum, this artificial vacuum that is not going to last. And, again, you can do it all day long. You can try to captivate the local population in the same way that the North Korean government doesn't let anybody trade outside of their country. They don't let them hear any competing ideas. They're in this little bubble, this completely fragile, anemic bubble where the local industries absolutely suck. They're not exposed to international competition. They're starved of oxygen, right? So the whole notion of protectionism is pants on head, stupid, and ineffective. So let's move on to another argument that tariffs are just leveling the playing field. We're just making it fair because other countries impose tariffs on us. So why can't we impose tariffs on them? Isn't that fair? That's just tit for tat, right? Well, think about it for a minute. Tariffs are a tax on the buyer of an import. So if the Chinese government, I should say, is imposing a tariff on US exports, what that really means is they are forcing their local citizens to pay a tax to the government every time they buy American products. Who is that hurting? Well, that's certainly not hurting us. That's just hurting the Chinese citizens who want to buy stuff. That's robbing them and giving their money to the government, who's then going to go piss it away on something ridiculous that they don't want. So in the same sense, it's like two wrongs don't make a right. It's like, why do you think that robbing United States citizens, siphoning off some of their money and giving it to the American government, why do you think that's going to make them better off? Like, at what point did the US government ever become a good steward of resources? Like, they are the most inefficient, most corrupt, most insane place you could ever expect to park your money and get like a positive return out of it. And lastly, let's address the last argument in favor of tariffs. And this one is a real fun and interesting one, because it's basically like the unfalsifiable claim, the ultimate claim of statists that, oh, well, you see, we have to use tariffs as our form of geopolitical leverage, that, like we want to be able to put the screws to our adversaries in the case of a particular negotiation, or we need to protect a certain very, very key industry that's important for national security. This is just code language for the statist to say, I want to be able to do whatever the hell I want, and you can't ever possibly push back against it, because your definition, your opinion on what constitutes national security or strategic advantage, it could be literally anything. That's the thing. It becomes totally unfalsifiable. What's the objective metric for a critical piece of infrastructure or industry? And again, here's the thing. Like, if something is so important, if we have an industry that's so indispensable, and we need to make sure that it's strong and it can stand on its own 2 feet, the most important thing you could possibly do then is subject it to the rigors of the free market, of international competition, right? In the same sense, like, supporters of tariffs will say, like, well, you see, we can't become totally reliant on international trade, like for semiconductors or this, that, or the other, because if then, a war breaks out and we get cut off from those resources, then we're going to be completely screwed. And to that, I would say this: hey guys, the free market has already figured out hardening supply chains, right? There's this professional career path called supply chain management and logistics. These people already do it in voluntary industries, like the automotive industry. They're already diversifying their supply chain. They're already trying to minimize risk so that stupid, ridiculous political events and wars and embargoes and all that shit doesn't end up shutting them down. So we don't need the government to step in and make these nuanced decisions that need, constant reevaluation and spreadsheets and quantification of things. The notion that the government is going to do that, with all of their perverse incentives, with their reelection incentives, with their just absolutely blatant corruption. How many more examples do you need? Like insider trading and $500 toilet seats being bought by the military, and all of these examples of just absolute blatant malfeasance. Why would you ever trust the government to make those kinds of key critical calculations? The free market can already do it. It's this cool thing, guys. It's called supply and demand and the pricing mechanism. So tariffs are nothing more than another tax, and they fail for the exact same reason that any taxation fails, because it is a deadweight form of coercion that extracts wealth from an otherwise voluntary win-win interaction. That's it. It's really as simple as that. And all of the justifications, they just end up being, again, like mental gymnastics, twisting your brain into a pretzel, trying to violate the laws of physics, or in this case, the laws of economics. People will come up with 10,000 different ways on how, oh, no. You see, the rules don't apply to me. I can find a way to make involuntary interactions better for everybody. I can levitate. I'm the one who's exempt from gravity. Just trust me, the politician with a gun who's literally threatening you with jail time. Yeah, I can figure it out. You guys don't know what to do with your money, but me, the ever-wise master, the 4D chess master negotiator, I can figure out how to make you better by charging you money. It's an absurd, ridiculous argument, and it should be laughed at as childish. But that's where we're at right now, is the religion of statism. So tariffs are a tax. See them for what they are. That is all.